Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fish Tank. I'm Fish and a very happy new year to you. And we're going to celebrate the new year by checking out the new patch for Minion Masters, which will be dropping tomorrow if you're watching this live. Okay, so what do we have in store? So this is going to be a brand new expansion. Remember, the Minion Masters expansions last for 3 months and we get the monthly patches. So this is a brand new expansion. And as you can see here, it's got some awesome looking artwork and it is called the Furry Fury. But let's find out what it's going to contain. Okay, so Furry Fury is going to be 1.43. It's going to be dropping Thursday, the 5th of January, 2023. We're going to have a new Season Pass, of course. There's going to be the Free Pass, as always, and the Season Pass, plus a free DLC. Next up, we've got a couple of new cards. We're going to have a new skin. We've got a new adventure. Balance changes, and of course, bug fixes. Let's dive in. Okay, so here we see the new Season Pass. So we're going to have the new cards in there. We're going to have the skin in there, which is of course going to be in the Ruby Season Pass. We've got a couple of new avatars. We've got some new emotes. And also you can see there's a bunch of skins, a bunch of currency, a bunch of cards, all sorts of cool stuff in there. And now the free DLC we expect as usual to drop on Friday, the day after the season starts, and that should be available on Steam and Xbox. But what else are we going to find in here? So as mentioned, we're going to have some new cards. Now the first new card, as we can see on the artwork, it is featured. This is going to be Urclaw, Protector of the Peaks. Now let's find out about Urclaw. Okay, so straight away we can see he's a 7-mana Stout Heart minion. So he's got 800 health, same as a Blue Golem. So he's going to do 75 damage every 3 seconds. So 25 DPS, not great, but this is a tanky unit. But he does have a bunch of keywords. As you can see the keywords there in orange. Let's have a look at what they're going to tell us about how this unit is going to perform. Okay, so this unit is going to have Taunt. So that's when you see the circles around it. That's going to force enemies to attack it, even those that only attack buildings. Now, what else have we got? We got the Thick Hide. We've seen the Thick Hide already with the Wild Stonebjorn. This is also going to have the Thick Hide. And this is a defensive ability where it reduces the incoming damage from minion and spells by 7 down to a minimum of 1. So all damage incoming is going to be reduced. And of course, that's best felt when it's being reduced against hordes, stuff like that, because you get lots of stuff being reduced. And it gives him some very, very strong survivability. So if we have a look at how he works, so when at 50% health for the first time, he'll do a big roar, he'll deal AoE damage to all nearby enemies, and we can see on the card there, the bottom left icon, that's 100 damage, which is going to be his AoE damage, and it looks like the range is going to be for 5. Now, after he's roared, he'll then gain Berserker Rage and Haste, and Berserker Rage, as we see there, extra 100% damage. So he starts doing at 75 damage, goes up to 150 damage. And of course, he's hasted as well, so his movement speed and his attack speed speeds up. So could be putting out some decent DPS. So yeah, that's how he works. Starts out as a taunting, tanky unit with Thick Hide. When he drops to 50% health, then he does his big AoE roar and gains Berserker's Rage and Haste. So it'll be interesting to see how he works out. And he will be available from tier 49 in the free pass, or if you go for the season pass, you get him immediately at tier 1. And this is what he's going to look like on the battlefield. So I think the artwork is a good representation here of what the unit looks like. Really nice to see that. And of course, he's a Stout Heart, so should be able to trigger, if I can get my teeth in, Revelry on other Stout Heart minions that have that ability. Now that's the first new card. The second new card here is the Bevelanche. Love the artwork for this one again. Now the Bevelanche, this is going to be a 4-mana Stout Heart spell. And the way this works is you get some spectral bears that charge forward. So it does 180 damage, but it applies that damage over time. So over 5 seconds. So if there's something that's called up in the Bear Avalanche for 5 seconds, they'll take the full amount, and if they're only in for part of that, they'll take partial damage. So 180 damage, that's the same damage that a Fireball would do, but as you can see here on the card, it only does half that damage to face, so keep that in mind. Now, not only does it output the damage, it also slows the units that it comes into touch with, comes into contact with, so it's going to reduce their movement speed by 2 whilst they're within the Bear Avalanche, but it will also inflict slow so that once the Bear Avalanche is over, the units will still have that debuff on them, and as we can see there, the movement speed reduced by 20%, and the attack speed removed by 20%, and if there's any haste, it will get removed. So those are the 2 new cards that we have to look forward to in the new patch. Now, as always, we're going to have a new skin. Recently, we saw the Mecha Apep skin, which, despite its some graphical issues with it, which will hopefully be fixed in this patch, it was an awesome-looking skin. This time we have the Wrecked skin. This is Wrecked of the Burning Fist, and again, I think this is a great-looking skin. Look forward to seeing how it looks like on the field. And of course, with units like Wrecked, you get to really enjoy the skin, Masters, because not only do you see the Master on the tower, but when you jump into the field, you'll get to see the new skin on him, as well as his clones. So as always, that's going to be available at tier 38 in the Season Pass. Now, a lot of people really enjoy the adventure side of Minion Masters. So this is the PvE. Now, remember, adventure can be done solo or with a friend. And there's going to be a new adventure called the Showdown. Welcome to the Showdown, it says, the game show that brings you the bloodiest and cruelest acts of violence in all the realms. 1 contender, 9 challenges. Will they emerge victorious, or will their blood colour the arena floor? Now, as always, there's going to be a normal version and a hard version. Looks like it's going to be 750 rubies from what I've seen. And of course, there are going to be rewards. I think there's a Volko skin and various other things that you're going to get for completing that. So if you like the adventure side of things, the PvE part of this, then you will be looking forward to seeing this for sure. Okay, so next up we have the balance. Now, I feel like this is going to be quite an important balance. The last season's been kind of frustrating with regards to some certain overpowered strategies. And we'll see if the balance changes are going to bring those into line. And how it's going to change what sort of stuff we're going to see in the next patch. Now, of course, we're going to look at the balances, the rebalances, and the nerfs. And to start off with, we've got the buffs. Small buff to start with, Call to Arms. This is just reverting a recent change, going back to giving you 2 crossbow dudes and a warrior instead of just the 1 crossbow dude. So small buff there to Call to Arms. Next up, we have Frostfeather Flyby. So as we'll see in a minute, Frostfeathers, the units, are also getting this buff. So their damage is going to go up from 12 to 14. So remember, the Flyby is the spell that brings the Frostfeathers down. So you get 11 of them. So the total damage of this spell is going to go up from 132 to 154. Half of that to face damage, so 77 maximum to face damage. Now, this is going to make this a very strong spell, especially for 2 mana. Now, a while ago, you could use the Frostfeather Flyby to stop the Cage Prowler from spawning, but then there were some changes, some bug fixes, some balances. That didn't happen. But now with this buff, it's going to go back to being able to stop the Cage Prowler from spawning. And also, there's going to be a bunch of other things that it can kill that previously it wasn't able to, assuming that all of the Frostfeathers are able to get to their target and do damage. So, for example, things like the Assassin, Lady in Phrase, Stixie, and Cannon Roller, some kind of units that really stuck out when I looked at what it would be able to kill now. So expect to see a lot of Frostfeathers. Their killing ability is definitely going to be substantially increased. And now we have the same change, which is to the Frostfeather unit themselves. So again, their damage going up from 12 to 14. And remember, you get 3 of them, so it's an extra 6 damage per 3 attacks. So just a little buff there for the Frostfeather units, but that's not going to be as impactful as the Frostfeather Flyby. Okay, Stormy. So Stormy's getting a health increase from 150 to 175, and as we'll see in a minute, there's going to be a change to the Chain Lightning, and Stormy is going to feel that change, and Stormy is going to be weaker after the change to the Chain Lightning. Okay, so those are the buffs. Next up, we have the rebalances. So rebalances are with things that are changed in multiple ways. Not necessarily it's obvious if it's a buff or a nerf, or it's partly a buff, partly a nerf. So that we'll chuck stuff like that in the rebalance. And we have quite a lot of rebalances here today, starting off with some master rebalances. King Puff. I've played King Puff a lot this season, especially in 2v2, and he's been very, very strong for me. Now, he's going to receive some changes here. So his... basically, what they're doing is currently the King's birthday is linked to all of his perks, and the timer with regards to the King birthday is linked to the trick swap and the royal gifts. That's being undone a little bit. So his perk 1, the trick swap, this is going to have a fixed 40-second countdown. So you're not going to be able to reduce that. It's going to be 40 seconds every time you use it. Now, I think that's going to be quite a big nerf, because you were able to use the 4 to 7 mana cards previously to reduce the cost. Reduce the timer of the trick swap, get a bunch of extra trick swaps out in a period of time. And of course, when we get to perk 3 and generating those night puffs, that can be really, really important. Okay, so trick swap perk 1, fixed 40-second countdown. Royal gifts perk 2, 45-second countdown. I put cooldown there, but I guess I'm saying countdown. This is right. I'm wrong. So 45-second cooldown, but can be reduced by the 4 to 7 mana cards. So that's how it previously was, but now 45 seconds and can be reduced. So I think splitting these up just gives the devs a bit more granularity with regards to being able to balance things. Is it the buffs from perk 2 that are making them too strong? We can change that if necessary. Is it the trick swap that's too strong? Again, we can change that if necessary. So that's some changes to King Puff, and I think overall, probably a nerf. And the next master that's going to get a slight rebalance is Valorian. Not entirely sure behind what the thoughts are behind this. Normally when we get the official patch notes from the devs, they have some information on there, their thoughts as reasoning, but we can only just assume at the moment. So he's going to swap his perks 1 and 2. So currently his perk 1 is the Holy Light, and perk 2 is the Searing Light, which is his removal spell. So those are going to get removed. So now perk 1 will be the Searing Light removal spell, and perk 2 will be the Holy Light, where it starts healing your units. Additionally, the number of attacks the Searing Light does is going to be reduced from 5 to 4, but the healing that the perk 2 does is going to be increased from 13 to 15. Okay, so the Searing Light will be doing 160 or 320 damage at perk 3, if you're interested in that. So still a substantial removal spell. Now we move on to some rebalances to some cards. And as we alluded to just a little while ago with the Stormy, there's going to be some changes to the Chain Lightning. So Chain Lightning is going to go down from 5 mana to 4 mana, which is nice. But it's only going to hit 6 targets. Previously, it was able to hit 12 targets. And if you remember back in the day, even before that, there was no limit. It could hit as many as it could find. But now it's going to go down to 6 targets, which in solos, probably you won't feel too much. In duos, there's definitely the chance that it can find that. And of course, as we mentioned, that's going to be a nerf to Stormy for sure. Right, next up we have a rebalance to Combustion. Now, Combustion I've used quite a lot this season. It's felt very strong. So it's going to have a damage reduction from 300 to 200. So that's severe. Big damage reduction. A slight buff is that it's going to invoke on kill. Remember, invoke is one of the newest keywords that we've had added to the game, where you get basically a voidable minion in your hand or voidable card in your hand replaced by one that's more expensive but still retain the cheaper cost. So rebalance for Combustion, but definitely I think overall a nerf there. Now we have change 873 for the Dragon's Nest. So Dragon's Nest, mana is going to go up from 4 to 5. When you use a spell, you will get 2 Flightless Dragons. Remember, it will activate for the next 3 spells. So you can get 2 Flightless Dragons for each of your next 3 spells. If it's a 5 or more mana spell, instead of what previously was where you would get a Flying Whelp, now you will gain Rage on those Flightless Dragons. So you get an extra Flightless Dragon and the potential to rage them. as opposed to a flying whelp before. Is this going to be the sweet spot that we eventually find Dragon's Nest in? Who knows? Let's find out together. Right, next up is a change to a mechanic. This is the frozen mechanic. So the delay, this is how long it takes a unit to freeze when it's within the frost aura, if you like. So within a spell like the Snap Freeze or near a Frost Bearer, it's going to go down from 3 seconds to 2 seconds. So things are going to freeze more quickly. This is specifically, I believe, designed to be a buff to the spells that employ it, but also the Frostbearer will also benefit from this. There's a slight caveat: minion can't be frozen again for 3 seconds. So that means if we look at a Frostbearer, it will be able to freeze more quickly, down to the 2 seconds, but it won't be able to freeze again and again and again more quickly. So it's an upfront buff, but going forward, there's no change. So specifically looking as a buff for the spells like the Snap Freeze and the Rimagal's Breath, for example. Okay, next up is High Inquisitor Ardera. Now, Ardera's been really difficult with some real cheese that has very, very little counterplay. Cheese, has its place in the game, but if there's no counterplay, that's really frustrating. And the problem with Ardera is how she shields other Arderas when she dies. So we've seen the Ardera wildcards removed. We'll see Spawn of Fury in a little bit get a reduction. But we see here she's going to be made mythic. So that means you're going to only have one Ardera on the field at a time. Oh, we can just Spawn a Fury here. No, you can't, because she's mythic. It doesn't target mythic units. So that's pretty much a way of stopping this Ardera shielding Ardera and going on and on and on. Of course, the fact that she's mythic means that she can't be resurrected from Mordor, if that's kind of what you're trying to do. But she will also get the protection that the mythic units get from like a Wizardpuff's kill effect and the lightning bolt, stuff like that won't necessarily instantly destroy her. But I think that's a healthy change for Ardera. Now, we have a change to Sunburn. We've seen quite a few changes to Sunburn recently. And if you ever find yourself in a position where you want to see what spells or what minions used to do, did it used to do that? When did it change? You can always go and look at the Minion Masters wiki. Go and check that out. It's kept up to date, mostly at the moment by Jackia, who's doing a great job. So thanks, Jackia, for that. And that's a really helpful resource for the community. Just Google Minion Masters wiki and you'll find it. Okay, so Sunburn, mana going down from 4 mana to 3 mana, but the damage going down substantially from 130 to 60. It will do 60 damage to face. Previously, I needed 50% damage to face, but it will be 60 damage to whatever, including face. So it looks like they're trying to make this less of a removal spell, unless it's just for Horde. So it will still remove the Scrats, the little skeletons, but not really too much else. You can kill some snipers with it, but the number of things it can kill substantially reduced. So it's going to be, as mentioned, more about giving the rage to your minions and clearing the Horde off of them. Right, next up we have a rebalance to the Void Altar. Void Altar, of course, is the building that gives you the Void Souls. You collect them, you get, you profit. So the mana is going to go down from 8 to 7. The health is going to be reduced from 550 to 450. And the duration is going to go down from 50 seconds to 35 seconds. So that means you just need to think about it a bit more when you play it, because you're going to have less time to try to collect those Void Souls. And of course, the building itself is not going to be able to tank so much. So again, placement is going to be key. Okay, so we saw some changes to the Chain Lightning. Now we've got some changes to the Zap Shrine. So the Zap Shrine, the duration that it's going to stun for is going to go up from 2 seconds to 3 seconds. So that's a nice buff. But the duration of the building, how long it's there on the field, is going to go down substantially from 25 seconds to 16 seconds. And its rage is going to be slightly reduced from 20 to 18. So Zap Shrine's not going to be quite as powerful as before. But when it gets its stun, it's going to do a good, decent stun lock for a while, potentially on some units, but not for as long as previously. Okay, next up are the nerfs. And this is likely where we're going to see the things that featured very heavily this season. Are they going to receive the nerfs? Are we going to have a different meta this season? Let's find out. We're going to go straight in with Border Patrol. If you play duos, you will notice there is triple Border Patrol decks everywhere. Border Patrol is a really valuable card. Gives you the Sentry, the Arcanist. It can have a shield on it. And people have just noticed. And it came out of kind of nowhere. It didn't receive any buffs or anything. But yeah, you can wildcard it, play 3 of them, and it's very, very strong indeed. So no more wildcarding Border Patrol. You can still play it, but only 1 of them. And then alongside that, we've got a change to the Crystal Sentry. So the Crystal Sentry now, previously it was a 3 mana minion with 1 mana freeze. So it was still a 4 cost minion, but you could use it when you only had 3 mana available. So now it's going to change. It's going to be a 4 mana minion without mana freeze. So overall the same cost, but you can't use it quite so early. The change, of course, of 4 mana minion means you can get it from APET perk 3 now. And the health, this is, I think, a reversion of a previous buff. So the health is going to go down from 325 to 300. If you're a Wheel of Doom user, you may be rejoicing. This is another unit that will no longer be able to block the Wheel of Doom, assuming it doesn't have a shield. If it does have a shield, then you're still going to have a bad time with it. Okay, so next up we're going to see a change to the Empyrean Army mechanic. So there's a few cards that get a buff if you have the Empyrean Army activated, which is basically a deck building requirement. So previously you needed 5 unique Empyrean cards in your deck. So that can be the cards in your deck that you start with, or the cards in your deck plus the cards that your master gives you that count as Empyrean cards, for example, Diona's Traps. But you're going to need 7 unique Empyrean cards in your deck as opposed to 5 to activate it. Now, the cards that this will affect: Squire Puff, Lost Legionnaires, Sanctum of the Cleansing Fire, City Watch, Smite, and Caliph Dawnhammer. So they're all going to... You're basically going to have to, if you want these Empyrean Army buffs, you're going to have to commit further into the Empyrean Army, Empyrean faction. We've seen a lot of the strength of the current Empyrean cards are when you can mix them with other things. We see some really strong City Watch, Stormbringer decks. But this is going to restrict that deck building a little bit. Now, this is a change overall to Empyrean Army. What we might see in the future is different Empyrean Army cards might have a different requirement for the number of unique Empyrean cards. So, for example, you could have a Squire Puff Empyrean Army 2, where you only need 2 Empyrean Army. This is just kind of thinking out loud, but this is how it could be more granular in the future. But at the moment, it's an across the board Empyrean Army change, 7 unique cards. We say unique because wild cards don't count. Right, following on from that nicely, we had the Sanctum of the Cleansing Fire. So previously it had an infinite range. That's going to be reduced down to 20. So it won't be able to buff things quite so far away anymore. So that's going to be definitely a nerf for the Sanctum. And you're going to have to think more about how far forward you position it. And of course, the further forward you position it, potentially the more danger you put it in. We spoke about Ardera earlier. This is a change kind of related to that, but also to various other approaches. We've got the Spawn of Fury, copies allowed being reduced from 3 to 1. So the Spawn of Fury is the spell that basically splits a unit and gives you 2 of them. So it reduces their max health and damage by 20% and then gives you an extra one. This is not going to affect anything in solos because, of course, there's no wild cards in solos. But in duos, when you have someone spawn like a Wizard Path and then they throw a ton of Spawn of Furies on it, and you get all these tiny, tiny little Wizard Paths, which do look awesome, but they can be really frustrating. This is going to restrict that kind of strategy. Now we have a small health nerf to the Spear Throwers, health going down from 100 to 90. They're just trading too well. And of course, that this will also affect the Tantrum Throwers. And now we see a change, a nerf to the TAS. Now, this is going to have a tech trigger added, so you're going to need 30 tech to summon 2 gnats. So remember, in the last patch, they added the fact that it spawned with gnats. Now, you're not going to guarantee the gnats. You're going to have to spend some of your tech on them. And the thinking behind this is often you find the TAS and the Razor Squadron within decks together. And of course, if you're having to spend tech on the Nats, that means your Razor Squadrons are going to be less effective. So we'll see how that changes. TAS has been very, very strong. The number one deck on the leaderboard has been using the TAS again with the Razor Squadron. So we'll see if this affects that in any way. Okay, next up we have the bug fixes. Let's go through these quickly. So the first one's a very important one for me. Implemented a fix for the unowned cards issue, preventing games from starting incorrectly. Unowned cards is in quotes because that's what the error message was saying, but it wasn't actually related to unowned cards. So that was pretty much, I think, caused by if you clicked on the mayhem in the carousel in the main screen, that would cause this error to trigger, and then you would lose a game, or your opponents would lose a game if they triggered it. Hopefully we won't see that anymore. Okay, fixed Arcane Barrage's description, fixed Unholy Ground VFX persisting, so if you saw those green squirrely circles, that was caused by this. Fixed a broken interaction between Magnetic Bombs and Veil Stalker. Fixed the interaction between Rimagal and Unholy Ground that could turn Rimagal into a flying unit. Fixed an interaction between Rimagal and Unholy Ground that could turn Rimagal into a statue temporarily. And fixed Nightmare's adventure modifier only applying to the host of a co-op adventure lobby. And we carry on with fixed Sacrifice VFX not working. Fixed More Zap's description. Fixed Korgoth's attack animation breaking after a stun. And hopefully this will also address the fact that his attack completes even if he's stunned or died. Changed the Rocket Scrat's attack type from range to special. This is probably so it doesn't benefit from marksmanship, stuff like that. Once again, tried to stop the Cheese Date Scrats from ascending to a higher plane of existence. If you've seen the Cheese Dates coming out really, really bright, that's what this is attempting to address. Fixed the Blastmancer performing Soul Detonate while under Summoning Sickness. This sounds familiar, like we've had this before, but it's definitely fixed now. Fixed various errors in the Adventure Relics and Masters descriptions. Fixed the Prowl description. And then we have fixed an issue with Bolf failing to trigger Revelry. So if you've been playing Bolf, or if you've wanted to play Bolf in a deck with other Stout Hearts that have a Revelry effect, you can now trigger that correctly. Applied another fix for the Outlander Apep VFX going haywire. So this was the Mecha Apep skin, an awesome looking skin in the last patch, but it had some graphical issues. If you've seen it, you know you've seen it. But hopefully that you should be seeing it anymore. Fixed an issue with Magnetic Bombs teleporting. Fix Morgrul's AoE range indicator in the card play preview to actually reflect his actual AoE range. Fixed a camera angle issue relating to inspecting cards while in an adventure mode. And a very important one for me anyway, fix statues' speed being too fast. So if you've noticed in the last patch, a lot of statues were played, and this was because their speed was incorrectly increased. They should be at a speed of 3. They were incorrectly at a speed of 4, which made them very oppressive, especially if you had multiple ones, if you had hasted impatient statues, the Idol of Sacrifice, stuff like that. So hopefully the statues shouldn't be so fast anymore. You should have more time to deal with them. Okay, so that's the bug fixes. Okay, so Fury, I knew I was going to get that wrong. Furry Fury, version 1.43. We've got this dropping on Thursday, the 5th of January. We've got that new Season Pass and the free DLC that we spoke about. We've seen those 2 new cards, Urclaw, Protector of the Peaks, and the Bevalanche. We've got the new skin, which is the Wrecked of the Burning Fist. We've seen the new adventure, the Showdown. We've looked at all the balance changes and the bug fixes. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I'm looking forward to this patch. We'll see how it shakes up the meta. Don't forget, if you're enjoying this, like, comment, and subscribe. And as a reminder, because it is the end of the season, before the season ends, make sure you claim your guild rewards, your tri-team tourney, any outstanding quests, anything like that. Make sure you don't miss out on any of those rewards. And yeah, let me know in the comments what you think of the changes. What do you think of the new cards? Come back, let me know after you've had a chance to check them out, see what you think. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully you are too. I'll see you on the battlefield. Bad as a fish, signing out.